this meeting to order. This is the Thursday, February 14th, 2000 meeting of the AMATS Technical Advisory Committee. It is now 2:35 p.m. All right. So roll call, Mr. Weaver.
Here.
Mr. Knight.
Here.
Mr. Rover is not with us. Mr. Morgan.
Here.
Mr. Rebecca.
Here.
Mr. Morris is not with us. Ms. Witt. Here. Ms. Modell is here, and Ms. Epstein is not with us. But we do have 6 members present, so we do have a quorum. All right, Craig, could you please make the involvement announcement?
Yes, all AMATS meetings are public meetings. Public is invited to comment. If we have a business item, we'll have a presentation by staff or a consultant. We'll then have discussion by the committee, and then after that, we'll give the public an opportunity to comment on each business item.
Thank you very much. So the first item up is the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Morris. I would suggest that we have an item, business item 5C, which is the operating agreement amendment for advisory committees. We had a discussion at our last TAC meeting on this, and this was the notion of revolving the seat currently held by the Air Quality Committee among the other 2, Bike and Ped and the Freight Committee. And at the last meeting, the discussion was, let's hear from those committees on their thoughts on it, and then we'll bring it back at the next meeting and discuss it. Ms. Heil is unable to attend this meeting. She's out of town, and she was the one who, she really had an interest in it, so I would suggest holding off on that particular business item until our next, our March agenda, so that she'll have an opportunity to comment. I know she's very interested in it. I'm happy to give the committee an update on the kind of information that I got on it, but I think it'd be best to hold that over until she can do that.
Did we actually receive, we did receive feedback from all 3 committees, correct?
I received some feedback from, I don't remember receiving anything from the Air Quality Committee.
There were a couple members commented in favor of that.
Oh, I did hear from Air Quality, I did hear from one freight, and then the Bike and Ped Committee did discuss it at their last meeting, so
They've
yes.
always responded, Dave's responded.
Should we move it down to perhaps the informational report then? And that way, if anybody was here specifically to address that topic, could address it.
Good answer. We could make that 6C.
Okay. Rather than 5C.
Yes.
Okay, move to approve the agenda as with the change, 5C down to 6C.
Second.
So moved by Ms. Witt, second by Mr. Rebecca. Do we have any opposed? Hearing none, we are so moved. Let the record show that Ms. Epstein joined us. All right. The next item up is the approval of the minutes. We have 2 before us. The 2 November and December. So we'll start with November 1st, 2012.
Move to approve. And thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Witt, seconded by Mr. Hanson. Do I have any discussion? Any opposed? Hearing none, we are so moved. Now on to December 6th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Witt, seconded by Mr. Hanson. Are there any opposed?
I'm sorry, can I just make just one change? This is on page 16 and 17, just a very minor change. It says, he noted that DHS stated this particular site is representative of many neighborhoods around town and is similar to this Bernard site.
That's what you would
Yeah.
prefer it would.
Yeah.
Did you mark that up, or?
Yeah, I can just give you that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just a minor change.
Was it the very top?
Yeah, this sentence here is,
Okay, clarification.
yeah.
Number 3, non-opposed to accepting the clarification. Any other changes? opposed to approving? Hearing none, we are so moved. So are we nearly caught up?
We're nearly caught up. I have two more that I have received from our contractor from last year that I need to edit. Four more that I'm about to send to her. Did such a good job on the other one, so four more, and I believe those are all TAC minutes that
I
we're
think
sending?
so, yes.
So four more TAC
Policy
ones.
committee's kind of-
Policy's pretty close.
One left, and you
Yeah.
have a policy committee meeting minutes from me.
Yeah.
I'm directed.
We're getting there.
Okay,
Almost there.
great.
One national nightmare is almost done.
All right, we are now on to the business items.
And let me just say, again, thank you for having it caught up. It makes such a big difference as we prepare for meetings to have it.
Especially the most recent ones. Still remember it. All right, we're now on to item 5A, the AMATS Air Quality Advisory Committee appointments.
Okay, we have a memo there, item 5A before you, and it shows that we have two reappointments, Tom German and Bruce Lee. They've been serving on the committee for a little while, and so they're reappointments. And then we have a new position, that would be pronounced Neil Falker. Hopefully that's correct, and there's a brief synopsis of his background there included. So these would be an appointment, and the other two would be reappointments. And so the policy committee makes all of the appointments. We're asking for your recommendations and to support those. I'm sure Mr. Morris can give you more details on any of this, but here's our suggestion. We'd like your recommendation to the policy committee.
Recommend that the new appointment, oh, another discussion?
It's open to us for discussion right now. Yeah.
Right near you.
Are there any questions, comments, inquiries from the committee?
Steve, do you have any comments?
Well, just that Neil, we picked Neil because he actually comes to our meetings as a citizen. He's come to many events and said, "You want to be on our committee?" And he said, "Yes." So definitely has an interest. Sometimes that's all it takes.
Let the record show that Mr. Weber was 242. All right. Any other questions from the committee? Any questions from the public regarding this appointment? Hearing none, it's back with us.
Move to approve the new appointment and reappointment, for according to, no.
Recommend to the policy
Move
committee.
To recommend to the policy committee approval of the new appointment and the reappointment.
Second.
Got it. Moved by Ms. Smith, seconded by Mr. Henry. Are there any opposed? Hearing none, we are so moved. Are we ready? Bless you. All right, we're now on to item 5B, which is the Transportation Improvement Program TIP Administrative Modification number 5. For reading?
I'll let Bart explain this reading here.
No.
Thanks, Greg.
Wave breathing. Is that where?
Through the chair, I actually want to say something here too. It's just, I think Ken Morton had said it, can say, "I told you so," because we were questioned about whether it was appropriate to pursue the admin mod in advance of headquarters having a final stipend meeting. He was right.
So at last month's meeting, you approved an admin mod with numbers of the AMATS allocation in a draft STIP, and usually those numbers don't change. This time they did. So before we took it to the PC, in between the time the TAC approved it and the PC would have approved it, they changed. So we canceled the PC meeting. We're bringing it back to you now with the final numbers that are in the STIP, which is required. And basically that means we're still getting an increase in AMATS allocation funding, but not as much as we originally had proposed in the last amendment. So it's $1.6 million more in 2013, $1.3 million in 2014. All the other changes still remain in effect. We're still planning to put those extra funds towards Dowling. However, that makes the funding gap in Dowling greater than what it was before. We were, $3 million off, and we thought DOBS would be able to cover that. And in the obligation report that I presented last month, we showed that we had that plus an extra $900,000 wiggle room. So now we have a funding gap of about $6.9 million for Dowling Road. We anticipate about $5.5 to $6.5 million in DOBS, maybe a little bit more. So we still think we can squeeze out this Dowling Road obligation and get it done this year with those DOBS. So we'll know more as the year progresses, but that's the plan still. Still doable, but it'll be tight. So if you have any questions about any of the other changes, I can go over all of them again if you want to, but they're all the same from last month.
Madam Chairman, procedurally, what happens if you do get the additional DOPS and you do get the additional money? Where does the money fall out later? How does it reallocate it?
Through DOBS, it's reallocated through the obligation report. First, it goes to any construction overruns. If we have a project in the works now that has construction overruns, it automatically goes to that project. If we don't have any construction overruns, it comes back to this committee through the de-obligation report to approve where those funds go.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I have an additional proposed change that's an admin mod. Simple. One of the, in table 8, the earmark money that we have identified for the diving center says 1.4 something. The actual earmark remaining is 3,298. It's project 8. It's in table 8. It's project 15. You see where it just says carryover 1442. It should be 3292.
2292?
3292. It's a rock that we found.
Oh, that you picked up and there's one.
Looked up and it looked brighter than it was a little piece of gold. Where's the rock? The rock is secret. So,
So I'm sorry, then
doesn't
that's
change
it,
anything,
balances.
but it just reflects the remaining earmark money. So, an admin mod, just do that, would be great.
Any other questions? Any questions or comments from the public at this time? Hearing none?
Procedurally, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Since admin 5 was approved before, and this isn't coming through as an amendment to admin 5 that I can see, are you requesting an amendment to admin 5?
Well, I think
Just
admin,
replaces.
admin 5, when it came before us before, when it came to the TAC, it was TAC recommended approval to the policy committee. The policy committee never heard it, so they never approved it. So all that happened with 5 before was it was recommended to be approved.
But,
So-
so the question is, do you want to, I hate to say you're going to do the same thing twice, but in the minutes before, in January, it will say that you recommended approval. So now you have a new admin 5 with changes in it. Should you be rescinding your previous action and then moving on to a motion and
That's rescind our recommendation, your recommendation.
just to
They
keep
never
things
approved
clean?
it.
Jill, do you know who made the motion on?
Hang on.
It's the advantage of, and we don't January.
I think I know who it was.
I- Ms. Heil moved
Sweet.
to approve or recommend to the policy committee. Ms. Wood seconded.
So in absence of Ms. Heil.
I don't see why Ms. Witt couldn't get it.
Well, I would move that we rescind the recommendation that we made in January. As a first step, is that?
I
Rescind it and replace it with this one?
rescind the recommendation made in January to,
Recommend approval.
To recommend policy committee approval of the admin mod 5 that we had at that point.
right.
Sounds nice.
We can just leave, you know, the recommendation made in January is fine, that's
And
fine.
second that.
So moved by Ms. Wood, second by Mr. Weaver. Are there any opposed to rescinding the recommendation of the attachment?
Thank you. Okay, onward
All
now.
right, hearing none, we're moved to rescind. Now we're with the admin mod 5 in front of us.
Madam Chair, I move that we recommend approval for the policy committee. Do we need a policy committee direction on the contract as well? Policy committee approval on this one?
Yes.
I recommend approval of this admin mod 5 to the policy committee as presented on February 14th.
I'll second that.
Moved by Mr. Weaver, seconded by Mr. Buckle. Are there any opposed?
Can I just clarify for the committee, it's going to include the change to 15? Okay, thank you.
All right, hearing none, we are so moved. So item 5C is actually now item 6C, so we'll move on to what is item 5D, which is the AMATS boundary.
So you have a memo that says 5D, a pretty map. Of course, it's hard to read that whole. I also have that map over there on the wall behind Jill and Lori. But basically, what we've done is, you know, we have to, when they redo the census, when they do the census, we look at the latest numbers and redo our boundary to capture any changes that might have occurred. And so as the memo says here, we were supposed to review the urban area boundaries and look at those to expand ours. So if you look at the map, you'll see, and since I'm colorblind, I hope I got this right here. So the existing boundary is the blue line, and you'll see that it is pretty much in the Anchorage Bowl. It doesn't include any changes up in Eagle River, and then the expanded, after the 2010 census area was looked at, includes some parts of Eagle River, and for some reason, the flight line at Elmendorf, and I don't know how many people live there, Steve, you might let us know.
Nobody lives there.
That's what I thought. So I don't know why they included that, but that's the census tract that came out. So this is what we're suggesting as a proposed change to increase the urbanized area boundary to those lines. The AMATS area boundary will stay the same. You see that we now, if you look at the key up in the upper left corner, we now are able to say, thankfully, the limited maintenance area for both CO and PM10, which is great. But other than that, things will stay the same. So what we did with the map here, we wanted to show both the previous lines and what our proposal is. Our final version will just include the new one, so it won't be as confusing. But the hatched lines are the proposed expanded 2010 census urbanized area boundary. The blue line is what we currently have.
A question, Craig, just so that I'm clear myself. We should not have any red hatched new expanded 2010 census urbanized area boundary lines outside of our green AMATS area boundary. Is that correct? Because, you know, this one looks a little different because I do see a little squiggle there that's outside. It looks like we have some red outside of the green. We're colorblind, guys.
You're calling out colors and I have no idea what you're looking at. Where, are you talking about up where the park is in Eagle River?
Well,
Yeah.
no, actually,
Okay.
I just noticed this part right here.
Extending the urbanized area.
Yeah, right.
So the blue.
Yeah, they have some residences outside of the urbanized area that we need to smooth or make clear. See here, it's going beyond.
It's gonna be in the site.
Before it was a little theme that's down in here, that looks like that's
Right.
gone, it got smoothed.
Right, and we can, there's some little smoothing areas we did. Joni, who's back in the corner there, who's a long-range planning staff, who's helping us out on this, she was working on this.
Subset.
Yeah, I can speak to that. We, so the census 2010 data that we got creates the original shape file. It creates the original shape, and then what we were instructed to do is massage that, because that data is pretty broad and it's not really, it's based off of our census tracts, which aren't always the most accurate data that is specific to the area. So then we can massage those lines to, be more accurate. And so if you notice any other, we've been trying to do that, but if you notice any other lines that aren't quite fitting in where they should, we can fix that. And that was what we're instructed to do, so.
So you can fix the red lines to be within our green.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Barb?
The first step is massaging the lines, and the second step would be reporting that to FHWA and getting approval.
Right.
And that's what this could be.
Yeah, they have the final decision or approval on this, so we'll bring it to you today to look at this and see if it makes sense to everybody. There are a couple things that we had kind of thought of. If you look at, again, the flight line and those areas around the base, the blue line, you can see, if you look here, with this, the blue line here, so that's the existing boundary, and then the hash marks are the new boundary. So this blank area in here is, as far as I know, there may be some residences in there, military housing in there. It seems a little odd that that would be left out, not really sure why. So our suggestion was to have the boundary line here, the new boundary line, follow where they have with the flight line, continue down here, and then instead of going across, go up with the old boundary here, and then at this point, continue with the new and there. So if that makes sense, we go like this and capture all that. So this still seems, by looking at the census tracts and looking at, what we know to be residences in there, to make sense to include a little bit of both there. So that would be our suggestion. I wanted to have both of them on the map so everyone here could see what the census tract show versus what the old lines show, et cetera.
So what staff is recommending, through the chair, would be to move our blue line to incorporate the red line.
The hash area.
The hash area, okay. If I may, there's a, this looks really good, thank you, and I'm glad thanks for coming. But there was a question that came up to me this morning by our regional director, and it's one I hadn't thought about, more as informational purposes for the technical and the policy committee both. And that was whether the newly designated census urban areas, all of this red hatching, especially in Eagle River and Chupiak, whether there's other implications. I mean, he was thinking specifically MS4, but I understand that MS4 actually encompasses the entire municipality's boundary, so that's not it. But the question is there any implication for the of these boundaries to the municipality that they should be aware of? And so I don't know. And so maybe if this isn't, I don't know. Have you guys looked at it to see if these urban boundaries?
Jennifer,
really
what you're
impact
getting,
people?
I think what Rob Campbell, the PC chair, what he was getting at is if this is now urbanized area boundary, does that mean if we use AMATS funds to construct something out there, do we have to build to a different standard, urbanized standard as opposed to a rural standard? Because that is all new out there for urbanized area boundary. It used to just be, that's part of our AMATS boundary, but it's not in the urbanized area. So I don't know the answer to that. We're gonna have to look into that.
That one, I can address, because that was a question that got beat up, it got really vetted when the state started doing its update to the functional classification, that it does not require, that there isn't a direct link to design standards. And I think that would be especially important for the folks up on the hillside as well as actually both for the municipality and the state. I mean, we can design a rural section within an urbanized area, and we can, conversely, if you're really tight on right of way, design an urban section in a rural area, on a rural artery collector. But it's more if there's something outside of those two. I mean, right now, the urban, this red stuff helps on the PL allocation, some of the other things, but if there's anything else that maybe other folks ought to be aware of, it might be good to know for the policy committee.
And I have a related question. I was going to ask, because I remember when we did our air quality inventory, we did not include Elmendorf. And I'm wondering whether that now it seems to be part, whether we would.
I don't question.
You know the answer.
No, it's not required. I mean, the non-attainment boundaries, it was described on the basis of air quality information collected in 1978, something like that, and it's remained the same since. There's no obligation that the attainment area mirror the urban boundary.
That's good to know. But are there other boundaries that you guys have to work within in different programs? It may not be a big deal, but.
I don't think so, Jen.
Yeah, I didn't know if it had any implications. I mean, we have ARTSA, and then outside of ARTSA, if there's anything, I mean, if we have an urban boundary, I mean, if there'd be any implications, like you said. Most of that, I mean, is more going to be based Title 21 in zoning, my understanding. So,
Well, I think you need to go back to the origin of these urbanized boundaries. This is an AMATS function. It's the AMATS definition, urbanized boundary, correlated to the federal census information. So obviously, there are a lot of rural areas here that have been now classified in the urban boundary. And the question would be, is that really true? I mean, they're not urban. They're, in some of those areas, they're rural.
Do we have? So can we contest the red hash marks? Or is that a different effort?
I assume that the hash mark, that they correlate to the census information, but what precipitated us to change that boundary, in relation to the census data? Did we have to change the boundary? We had the census information, but is it truly an urban area? I mean, that's what I heard earlier in the discussion.
Yeah, okay, I guess that was, because the blue boundary is our urbanized boundary, and so the only thing that we've talked about is changing it on base, but not to extend it up to Eagle River. That's,
I don't know.
right?
I would have thought all the hash areas, yeah, that's what I.
Yeah, my suggestion was accept what the hash marks up in Eagle River, and then just smooth those areas down by the base, as I suggested.
we should do the same for the areas that are shown off of Golden View, Potter Valley.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the only
I'll put
change would be
all
those
that.
ones up around base.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't pull your blue boundary to include the red?
South part of town.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, yeah, this down here, south part of town,
Put the red
that's
hash
fine.
inside the border.
Chugack Eagle River area, that's fine. The only massaging
It's
that
kindergarten.
I would suggest is to, as I described around the pipeline, et cetera, those are the changes. Otherwise, anywhere there's crosshatched, I'd say, take that as it's written, as it shows on the map here.
And then
Just-
when you look at it later, there'll be no more hashed area, it'll just be outlined
Just
in
a,
blue.
just a blue line
Yeah.
for everything.
All inside the green.
Chugack Eagle River, all the stuff in South Anchorage, and then as modified, that's my suggestion, based on discussion with Mark, et cetera.
So
I'm
how is
confused
this-
why the South
Well-
Anchorage is being treated differently than Elmendorf. Why is your recommendation not to include the blue or outside of the red hatch? Is that what you
No,
would?
it is.
To include it.
It is.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't have any problem with what's shown in the crosshatch down here in South Anchorage. I don't have any real problem with what's shown in the hashing up in Chugack Eagle River, around the flight line in Elmendorf. it seems a little odd the way
But-
the census tract showed, so I wanted to
He's
modify
saying
it
that
based
the
on
blue will
that.
just follow and trace along here.
So the blue would have to be changed from what
Yeah,
it
well,
Yes,
well, the
yes.
reason I asked Joni to draw it up this way is so you could see what the previous version was from the 2000 census and then what the suggestion was. The hashing is all the suggestions from the 2000, based on the 2000 census, 2010 census and those census tracts. So the only modification where I want to juggle the lines a little bit is around the Elmendorf part, the base. And I've confused people again.
So, sorry. So Eagle River area will be part of the new urbanized area boundary?
Yes, correct.
So we'll have two discontinuous urbanized area
Yes.
boundaries.
Within the AMATS boundary.
Within the AMATS boundary.
It's all within the AMATS boundary. AMATS boundary, Potter Marsh, up to Blue.
Mr. Hanson?
And maybe I'm just showing my stupidity here.
It's been a long time since you colored, so go ahead.
Well, no, it was yesterday that I showed it before, so it doesn't make any difference. But what does this mean? I mean, what does this do as far as the urbanized boundary? Because, urban, it's like a lot of things, we use the same word to define a lot of different things. Like in Title 21, it's urban and rural is based on zoning and such, and those are the type of improvements. But what does this mean? I'm
Our allocation is decided upon what our urbanized area is. So if you have more urbanized
PL.
area, our
PL.
PL can increase.
Okay.
So the dollars that we have for the PL funds, not the 20-some odd million in the TIP funds, but the PL allocation is based on your urbanized area boundary. If we increase the size of that based on what our urban area actually is, based on the census data, that will increase. That's why it matters.
And I guess the question is whether or not calling it an urbanized area has any design implications. I guess that was is that the question that you were asking, Jennifer?
I'm comfortable that it does not,
Okay.
because it's something that we've had to deal statewide with. Because, and as we all know, that from our brethren up there up from the north are very sensitive about being classified urban, and what does that mean? So in terms of design standards, I'm comfortable that's handled on a project basis. And even if something is designated urban or arterial, doesn't mean we can't use, if it's appropriate to use rural standards and like that.
Mr. Morris?
Question, the PL funding formula, is that correct, based on urbanized area boundary? And is that based on population that's described within that urbanized area boundary, the area?
Yeah, the DOT headquarters has a formula that we've talked about a number of times here, and there are a number of things that go into it, population, lane miles, all sorts of different things. So this is round up the factors. Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember the actual.
That's Mr. Wilbur. Oh, sorry, it's Mr. Weaver, sorry.
And it seems like we would have included Girdwood as well.
Well, it's outside the AMATS boundary in that the density down there just wasn't enough previously. So this is based on whatever the census came up with, and those are the results.
So that was the missing, what was the criteria, what was the formula, what was the correlation, what was the basis for making the decision in these additional areas for urbanized boundary changes? So what you're saying is Girdwood fell below whatever threshold that would
Right,
have been.
yeah. Yeah, what Joni can tell you in more detail what she did in working with Terry Lamberson, but this basically, we got information that says, here are your census tract data. You go and get, I mean, I don't know how to do this stuff, but you go get shape files, and it comes in and it says, here's where we have now shown that there's an urbanized area due to the population, et cetera, and put it on a map then. And
We can, I don't believe that Terry found any urbanized area boundary in Birdwood, but I can double check.
I'm just curious, population-wise, it's just as urban as that North Birchwood, Shikiak areas that you've identified as urban now.
We can definitely, I can double check with Terry and see. I don't believe that there was, but it's worth,
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the committee at this time?
I guess this is a time-sensitive thing. There's a few questions, I think in preparation for the policy committee that maybe we should be prepared to answer is, are there any implications of these new hashed areas to either the state or to the municipality that we should be aware of? And it doesn't sound like there is. We just need to be sure of it and confirm if there's anything else that we should be aware of in the group. So maybe, well, I guess I would take a motion. And I move that we.
Does that?
Well, do we should do? Oh, yeah. For you. Okay. So, motion.
Before we go into that, are there any questions, comments, discussions from the public at this time? Right, hearing none.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a motion or a suggestion that we bring this back next month and meet with a chance to look at these other questions and maybe bolster. I think it would be useful, especially for the policy committee, to give some citations and detail, maybe the background on why do we do this. Oh, it hurts my head every time I know. I'm trying to keep all of our boundaries stay, but to be very clear on what the definition of the urbanized boundary means for AMATS. And it sounds like it's positive. It gives us greater population to count in planning fund formula. But is there any other implication? So just to put it off into next week.
So it's a motion to postpone.
Sure.
Second.
Postponed by Ms. Witt, second by Mr. Wilbur. Are there any opposed?
I have a comment or a question if I could before. Steve, we saw an email from Cindy that said that the 30th in March, that the Eagle River PM10 area is gonna be no moss.
This actually reflects the anticipated.
Okay, that's, okay.
As a maintenance area?
Yeah, that happens March 8th, yeah.
Okay, so the yellow line is correct? In
Yes.
Eagle River?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, just a comment. But I think, Craig, on this one here, we just put, large urbanized area affects potentially increase in PL funds, does not have effect on design standards, does not have an effect on
Zoning.
allocation of funds to, a direct allocation of funds on the tip, will not affect currently implemented plans. I think it just gives them what it does or doesn't do, and then reflects current US
Then we have the
census information boundaries for purposes of consistency,
All right.
or something like that.
We have a motion and seconded. Are there any opposed to the motion? Hearing none, we are now on item 5E, which is the bicycle and pedestrian committee appointments.
Okay, we have a previously crafted 5E in the corner of the memo there. We had one of our Bike and Ped committee members, one of the public appointees who, due to her job, was not able to attend our meetings and asked to resign. We haven't made any of the meetings that we had so far. So we had the opportunity to appoint one new public member. In addition, our member that we had selected from the school district was also unable to attend due to their job. So we have two new appointments. I have included one of the public member seats on the resume on the back here. The school district one, this is the person who is the director of school district student transportation, and so, it's a kind of an ex officio appointment there. I don't have any background information on her, but she's the director of student transportation there. For a public seat, you'll recognize Todd Logan's name, I'm sure. Mr. Logan has been very active at our meetings, has commented on numerous occasions. He's also been very active in the Bike and Ped committee meetings. He actually put his name in for the original appointments for the public seats. I think the discussion at the time was, he's going to come to the meetings anyway, so we'll get double duty with that guy. So in this case, I think it would be a great appointment to have someone who's already very interested and has been really getting up to speed on our issues. So that's staff's suggestions for the two seats that we need to fill in that committee. Happy to answer questions.
Questions from the group?
We probably should have confirmation hearings for Mr. Logan.
Grill him. We'll schedule those for August.
Is there any questions or comments from the public at this time? Yes, Mr. Logan?
Yes, I'm Todd Logan, one of the individuals that you're considering to recommend. Craig did call me last week and asked if I was still interested, and for whatever it's worth, I will show up at these meetings whether I'm on this committee or not. But actually, there's two things, just for full disclosure, that have changed since I submitted this over a year ago, and possibly those should be added if you approve the recommendation and forward it to the policy committee. One is I am now routinely working as a volunteer for Bicycle Commuters of Anchorage. So my name routinely shows up as a BCA volunteer, and this is relevant, among other reasons, because Brian Littman's the president of BCA, does sit on that committee. Secondly, last April, I was elected to the Huffman O'Malley Community Council, and so for whatever that's worth, that's probably worth mentioning on here as well.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. Any other questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, it's back to us.
I move to approve, recommend the approval of Marty Elkins and Todd Logan to the bicycle pedestrian advisory committee.
Second. Moved by Mr. Morris, second by Ms. Epstein. Are there any opposed? Hearing none, they are so moved. We have, I guess, an opening for any committee comments on any business items. We have an opportunity later too. Guess we'll move on to our informational items. We are now on item 6A, the freight mobility update.
Thank you, Madam Chair and advisory committee members. Just a brief update on some of the mobility that we've been working on. We're working on a freight criteria to include an update in the process and the evaluation and scoring of that. So I've drafted some language for that, and the freight advisory committee has been taking a look at it, and I know you will have that before you shortly also to include the mobility criteria. And one of the main reasons that it's included is, as you know, the National Freight Plan, a lot of freight planning efforts under MAP 21 is highly supported and recommended by the Federal Highway Administration, so we're just trying to prepare for that. And primarily, the criteria that we drafted will look at safety, access, and individual connectors. We are going to take a tour with the 732nd Air Mobility Squadron, and they forward deploy a lot of the cargo and soldiers and so forth out of J-Bear. And Master Sergeant Holmes is one of our freight advisory committee members. We'll be doing that this Wednesday, so we look forward to a continued partnership with the military and freight advisory committee. The freight mobility study, we would like to move forward with that. The last major study was done in 2001. We were looking for a local match of about $13,000. And so we have the freight mobility RFP. It's been prepared for quite some time. We just need to locate some funds to finish that. We had Ms. Isabel Roy from Public Works come and discuss with the Freight Advisory Committee the new pedestrian improvements and plans for the big King funding area. And so they were able to provide recommendations and input to that. And they were looking at some fencing options, some ways to make sure that there was a clear delineation between pedestrian and freight. So just to improve safety. And I know that Isabel and that team is completing some work and making some modifications to that design based on some of those recommendations. However, that does not mean that the Freight Advisory Committee gets all of their recommendations and suggestions implemented. So I'm sure that there's some give and take on both sides. And one of the other recent events that we had was a partnership and collaboration with the DOT, Commercial Vehicle Enforcement, to go into a live roadside inspection of their weigh and motion stations. And so individuals had an opportunity to look at a live inspection with officers and then apparently there was an accident also, and so they were able to see how all that works and how it applies to their industry, and also for transportation planning staff to understand exactly what they're talking about. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Could you state your name? Oh, Teresa Brewer. Thank you, thank you.
Questions or comments? Any questions or comments? I'm kind of disappointed that you weren't invited to the 7:30 second air movement.
If you'd like to go, please forward me on your name.
I doubt I'll
Get
be
you on the
able to.
list. It is not a problem.
Yeah.
There is room for you.
Briefing. Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Up next is item 6E, the innovative outreach using video. Please state your name.
It's Vivian Leatherwood, Transportation Planning. This item is a little change of pace. Federal planning regulations require MPOs such as AMATS to use visualization techniques in describing their MPOs and their transportation improvement programs. We've been doing that. I think we've done a really good job in our MTP and with our TIP and especially with public meetings. And what FHWA certification reviewers do look to see that we are using visualization techniques with public involvement outreach. But in 2012, we did a little different thing using video. And video can be used to educate the public. It can be used to change an image or to create an image. It can be used to sell a product or a service, and it can be used to document meetings. There are not too many really great examples out there on the web of other MPOs that are using video other than to document meetings. There are some interesting examples. Orange County, Los Angeles has an example of a music video that is animated for how to ride the bus. DART, Dallas Area Rapid Transit, has a video that's done in-house with in-house staff and an in-house videographer, how to ride the bus. Phoenix, Arizona has bought into this big time. They've done 6 music videos, how to ride rapid transit. Those are also animated, they're music videos. Texas has done a really great, short, snappy project video that we all, Teresa and I love. It's an interchange project showing before and after, and it's selling the project, you know, the benefits of the project, and that's another good use. But there aren't too many examples of that. There's a recent Transportation Research Board report out that just came out in August of 2012 on use of social media for public transportation. And in all of this, I have not seen too many really, really good examples of using video. And so I'm going to be showing you some video later, and I'm going to have to ask you to move. So you may want to decide whether you want to leave that to the very end of the meeting or if you want to do it now. But the Public Transportation Department of the municipality has done a great video on how to ride the bus. It is beautifully narrated by a bus operator, John Fiorella. He's a former disc jockey, so he has a great voice, he has a great personality, he comes across very well. It's a cutting-edge interactive and educational video. It's approximately 15 minutes. It's an award-winning video. It won a national Davy Award. It's a silver award. And Davy stands for, as in David and Goliath, it's for smaller budgets, smaller companies. And it was a really prestigious award. It's adjudicated by the International Academy of Visual Arts. So it was really a plum in their. It covers such topics as routes and schedules, boarding and exiting, rules for riding, accessible services, bike and pedestrian safety, schedules, and travel options. And it's on their YouTube webpage. And AMATS is also going to have an AMATS YouTube webpage. We have a Facebook page right now, and they're on that as well. So I'm going to be showing you a little bit of this later. For some strange reason, a year ago, I started writing songs myself. And I've written, in the space of 5 months, I wrote 24 songs. And I got some ideas. I just had some ideas what I wanted to do for transportation and to promote transit. So I did 2 music videos. I don't know why. One is called Highway Blues Plan B. It's to promote transit. And another one called Getting Around Alternative Transportation. Nobody, from what I see on the web, there's nothing like these two videos. And whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But my first effort was with the Solid Waste Services. It's called Trash Day Blues, and it was first runner-up for Best Music Video at the Fairbanks Film Festival. So that was a great encouragement that we might be going the right direction with that. I'd like to mention that both of these videos used a lot of volunteer time. Transit did have a grant from the Federal Transit Administration, but they also used up 270 hours of volunteer time. So they did. It's really very pleasing. And mine was almost totally volunteer, except the fact that public transportation did provide a bus and a technical support for 1 hour. And mine were both done off of duty hours. Craig provided some money for editing, a couple $100. But really, for very little money, we have 2 interesting and humorous videos, and you will recognize a lot of the local talent. So new for 2013 is that we are going to have this AMATS YouTube channel, and we'll put all these videos on there together. And we'll be sending out an AMATS Hot Topics Bulletin to get that out there. And we want to have a Public Transportation Department has posted a video that's really good. It's a national video on bicycle and driver safety, and it emphasizes the fact that both have responsibility for minding rules of the road. But Craig's idea, and along with Lori Skanke and Jamie, is to do one of our own with a local personality who may be well recognized. Another community has one that has used a weatherman. Everybody knows the weatherman, and he's got a great personality and great so we may be doing that. And also, about 10 years ago, Mr. Wilbur, when he was AMATS committee coordinator, did an AMATS 101 presentation. We've always talked about having this type of DVD and for new planning and zoning commissioners and for their packets and for community councils. So this is new ground for us, but I think it's a positive step in the right direction. And as I say, I think all of these are kind of groundbreaking. I mean, they're cutting edge. I was shocked to discover that. But so I'll leave it with you if you want to see these excerpts now, or if you'd rather wait until after the next the next information item.
Vivian, can you, a kind of a definition of the idea behind visualization? I mean, to me, what it means is, what we always used to do when we were planning before is we'd create documents that are just, flat paper, and we'd get that, and we'd try to interest people in coming to a meeting or learning about a project and all that sort of stuff. And then the idea behind visualization would be, do we have 3D models that show what the road is going to look like before and after? And how are we reaching out to the public to grab their interest? I mean, that's kind of, that's what the feds are pushing. They want you to use these, whatever visualization techniques you can do to get more public involvement.
Mm-hmm.
Vivian mentioned the part about what I've been trying to work on with Lori Skanke about bike and ped stuff is, I have envisioned an idea of like a 30-second PSA of how to ride your bike, where bikes are allowed, relative to the Title IX, municipal traffic code, talk about where bikes are allowed, because it seems so many motorists think they know where bikes are allowed. They get angry when they see the bike in the street, not realizing that the bike is allowed there, and then bikers will come up to a stop sign or blow through it because, they're the biker and they're, the stop sign is there, but there's no one coming either way, and not realizing that, well, if you're in the street, you gotta pay attention. So there's a disconnect, I think, on both sides of what is allowed and what isn't allowed, and my idea was, let's do a PSA with someone talking about the rules of the road there. And that's kind of what the one from Texas is. They have the weatherman, and he's talking about bike safety and going with the lane, going with the flow of traffic, et cetera. And so something like that we could put on the local TV as opposed to just Channel 10, it'd be on the network channels. So that's kind of why we're doing visualization. And these are some innovative ideas that People Mover's already done, and Vivian has done a couple, and we're looking for other ones to do in the future.
I'm thinking there's a lot in Title IX you can do.
Oh, yeah.
Really, and now that Title IX was just revised, I'm just picturing, I have
Sure.
a.
I thought for a second here.
There's a lot
I
of
got-
with it.
years ago, but I
Yeah.
guess not.
I think you'll want to use professional services to do some of these. I mean, mine are fun and entertaining, and they're certainly acceptable, you know. But I think you want to use somebody who's good with sound and lighting.
So,
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah,
You
Mr. Marsh?
mentioned this is AMATS 101. Now, are you talking about recreating that perhaps? In
Sure.
video form? Is that one of the ideas I was just trying to?
Just to update it and.
She's trying to convince me to do
Yeah.
that. Do the local talent portion of the program. Talent in parentheses.
Well, you'll see more of this talent in a minute.
wait, there's more.
Lance can do it. I think that would be really a good idea, because this is such a big process for most people, even some people that are here a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think that'd be helpful. And we got 3 the 3 citizen committees that would be helpful for new members of those committees, so they have some idea of what's going on. So I just think that's really good.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel when you have to do that. You have to give them something,
Yeah.
you know, a little.
Yeah, that's good. That would've been, I guess I wish I would've known about the 101 before I started this 2 years ago.
Turn the job down.
Lance told me though, he was my right hand man.
I flailed.
Most of us do.
All right, so I guess the question, do we wanna watch the videos now or wait until after the?
Now's good.
Now's good.
Not much more agenda left.
Just the operating agreement modification, if you want to discuss that.
Well, I thought we weren't really going to discuss it today.
And we just moved it down in case there were
Right.
people that came that wanted to talk about it. We wanted to make sure they didn't move out in case someone was here who wanted to chat about it. That was the only reason to move it down
'Cause I-
instead of.
Yeah, but you want you to save your discussion, then they'll send us back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess not. Are we okay with watching videos now? Okay, that's fine.
Actually, do you have to move?
Okay, yeah, we do have to move. We have to make a motion.
Move to move.
You got it, you hit the floor. I was in the apartment. Aren't you the driver?
Yeah.
How's the driver do that? Just smelling weed.
Very excited for chicken.
Did you have to wear a cowboy hat? See, you wore a cowboy hat. Really?
I have to tell you, they're going to be submitted to the Los Angeles Music Video Festival. Also. So those are going to be shown worldwide.
Contact your agent.
Wow.
Vivian, do you have an agent yet?
Yeah.
I'm my own agent. My daughter is my agent.
You know, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I just wanted to show you, this is the AMATS, I mean, this is the Anchorage People YouTube site. Now, they've done.
Hey, there's all of our stuff. This is John Hughes.
It's just the introduction to the AMATS.
People number.
Uber is a great way to get around Anchorage, and technology is in place to help make trip planning easier. Riding the bus eliminates traffic hassles and gives you extra time to relax. If you follow a few simple steps, you'll find that riding the bus can be efficient, safe, and affordable. You've taken the first step by watching this video. With a little planning, you'll find that riding the bus can get you where you want to go, and it's good for the environment. thank you for your interest in learning to ride People Mover.
And that's the introduction, and I think the next one is chapter 1, is that routes?
Yeah, if you go through all of them, it's about 15 minutes.
We won't do that, don't worry. We will
People Mover has several options
In the interest of time.
throughout Anchorage.
What chapter?
Oh, you lost her.
It's on?
There are several tools available to help you plan your trip, including System Map,
I'm sorry, I don't know why that happened. What is that doing?
maps, individual route maps, and route schedules. These can be found in the People Mover Ride Guide, available at transit centers and municipal libraries, online at peoplemover.org, and at individual bus stops. Locate your starting point and your destination on the system map. Look to see what routes serve your destination. Decide whether you can make the trip on one direct route or if you'll need to transfer. If you need to transfer and you're new to riding the bus, we recommend you use one of the transit centers as your transfer point. After you've found your route, look at its schedule to see what pickup times will work for you. Determine if the route is traveling inbound, toward downtown, or outbound, away from downtown. Make sure you're looking at the correct schedule for weekdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Using the individual route map, determine the time point before your stop. Then look at the schedule to find your departure time in the column corresponding to that time point. Remember, there are many bus stops between time points. There are several online tools that can also be helpful. People Mover's website has route maps and schedules, as well as information on rider policies, programs, and events. Check it out at www.peoplemover.org. Bus Tracker provides estimated GPS monitoring of your bus so you can see where it is along the route. Click on the red bus bulb and you'll see if your bus is running on time. Click on your bus stop and see when the next departure times are. Simply log on to peoplemover.org and click on the Bus Tracker link. My Neighborhood is a site developed by the municipality for residents to locate various municipal services. Type in an address or cross streets and choose local services. Drop down menu, find bus routes and stops nearby. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube are great places to find news and information about People Mover or get tips from other riders. You'll find us with a quick search for Anchorage People Mover. You can call People Mover Customer Service for help with trip planning and other information to help your ride go smoothly. 343-6543 for assistance.
This is the AMATS Facebook page, and it shows there's information on here about the Freight Advisory Committee and some of the tours that Teresa has given, which were very interesting. And then we also have videos. This is the National Driver and Bicycle Safety Education video. It's very good, but we want to do one that's local. And then we have the one that we just saw, that we have the whole thing here, People Mover, How to Ride the Bus. Then we have these other two that are more lighthearted. So we can watch those.
I think we can just show getting around now.
No, here we go.
Maybe not.
You're gonna act on your part?
Take autographs.
Well, it was smooth as silk on the highway that morning. Everything was copacetic then without warning. I was headed to work in my pickup truck. And some jerk hit me in there. I was stuck. Took too long time for the police report. I was worried I'd be late showing up for work. So I got my baby to the shop right away. Then called my friends for a ride that day. I had the highway blues. Yeah, highway blues. I have a didn't answer. Didn't care, and it got up my damn. She just said, boy, you lean on me too much. How about this once you just take a bus? Well, I didn't know how, but I wouldn't admit it. Besides, what's a guy like me doing taking trend? It's not my style, doesn't fit my image. If I'm seen on the bus, it could do a lot of damage. I had the blues, yeah. And the highway blues. It wasn't getting any better. I had to get to work, so I found out how to take the bus on the closest route. It was pretty easy using my computer. Before I knew it, I was a bus commuter. Paying was easy, found my seat.
That's my temper.
I missed it. Wasn't getting any better. Well, we had a good time just shooting the breeze. I have to admit it, I felt right at ease. It was good to slow down after that break. Get ready for work with an email check. Well, we got off the bus at the same destination. Turned out being a good situation. I still love my baby back in the shop, but for now I'm a commuter at the bus stop. I had the highway blues. Yeah, I had the highway blues. I have the highway blues.
Yes, Mark.
But now it's getting better. I have the highway blues. Yeah, the highway blues. Those old highway blues. But now it's getting better. Yeah.
So did you recognize a few people?
Zach?
So if you can bear with me, we'll watch Getting Around.
Proper terminology is don't quit your day job. No, really. Reverse. Back up, back up.
So see, it's quick and easy to find AMATS here. Just put it in and it's right there. Okay. If you really want to see something fun, I can show you Trash Day Blues after this. It's for music collections. My daughter's in that. If you have time. So here we go with Getting Around. Turn on the track.
Save the environment. Yeah, that's all well and good until I figured out what you're there. Saying let's take alternative transportation. We take our next summer vacation. Well, I figured she meant take the bus or something like that. But I found out that when I was driving on a safety hat, seems to be right here crossing that old county line. So the long feel like screaming down slip line.
Where's the zip line?
I was recovering nicely back home in town. When you said you found a new way to get around.
Yeah.
Before I knew it,
Instead of taking the tram.
I was making my way through downtown rush hour. next time we took a taxi, I realized she had something new that she fancied. She said we wouldn't be taking a regular cab, and I found myself riding in a rickshaw pedicab. Said she found an improvement over the everyday bicycle, but I flat out refused to ride that one wheel unicycle. It's been a while since I've seen my good friend. We ran into each other at the hot dog stand. She asked how I was doing, and we had a good talk. Told her I found a new way to get around, called it walk. Yes, it's walk. Alternative transportation, getting around.
Are you up for watching one more? Or would you rather not? That's okay. Well, thank you very much.
Since I'm having it home.
You're quite the actor.
That's the reason you didn't know.
Now I know why Teresa left.
Yeah, she's smart. That would be a Red Sox hat. You look like a perfect cowboy. Nice hat.
Pretty funny. Like the presentation, Fabian? Alright, our last item is, I guess, a brief discussion. Item 6C, which is the AMATS operating agreement amendment for advisory committees. And there was a reason why we should put this down, was so if there's anybody who arrived from the public who wanted to discuss it, because it was on the agenda, but the person on the committee who was really kind of spearheading it is not here this month, and so we can heard, I guess, the majority of the discussion after we heard the discussion. But anybody here? Nope. So you did share, Craig today, if everybody saw, he did send an email with all the comments, I guess, we've received.
I didn't include, if you noticed, Abe said, I second what Lois said, so I didn't include what Lois said. Which was the idea of adding 2 additional seats along with the air quality one that's already there, so adding a bike and ped seat and freight seat.
So each advisory committee would have a seat on the technical committee.
And that would take, that adds 2 members, so it would be total goes up to 13, so we still have an odd number. So that's a problem. Okay, so I guess discussion of that, further in-depth discussion will happen next month.
And quickly, just to update folks on the tip criteria, staff has had 2 meetings on it, so probably about 4, almost 5 hours worth of discussion going through the criteria, tweaking them, getting them up to date with MAP 21 and performance measures, seeing what we can do with that. We're going to have one more meeting, staff will have one more meeting on this. We'll finish up the roadway and the TA, the transportation alternative ones, and we'll take a crack at the CMAC ones. Those are pretty recent, so not too much, but we do need to look at those a little bit. I did send out that poll earlier today, looking at when we can have a work session on it, so hopefully March 11th looks like, so far, with the people who've responded, that's the best date. And that will still, a March 11th meeting with an ability to still get them out in time for a public hearing. So I can schedule that today would be great, if not tomorrow.
So everybody can get back to the office or something, respond to poll. All right, are there any other community comments at this time? Ms. Epstein?
I just wanted to mention that we didn't discuss the fact that there may be a sequester, and we don't necessarily need to discuss it now, but that may mean that we need to revisit some of the AMATS numbers again if there's less federal money available. So stay tuned to see what's going on in DC.
Yeah. Good, Tom. Anything else? All right, our next scheduled meeting, the policy committee meeting, is 2 weeks from today.